Welcome back, gentlefolk and rapscallions of all persuasions. Amazon thinks that a new Stargate series would be too difficult for a new viewer to get into. Allow me to take you through the story of how I started watching Stargate SG-1 during the second half of the Season 8 premiere. Because I will be talking about Season 8 and how it relates to the rest of the series, I can't really do that without spoilers, so let's get to it in 3, 2, 1, let's jam. Let's time travel in our minds back to 2004. I was entering 8th grade, and my idea of a fun Friday night was watching sci-fi with my dad. And when I say that Season 8 is the best-worst place to start, this is 100% based on my own experience, because I was watching the new episodes week to week and also catching up on the rest of the series. Imagine my confusion as to why Dr. Frasier wasn't there because I hadn't seen the Heroes two-parter yet. And also, mind you, I wasn't catching up by watching DVDs. At least at first. I was relying on syndication and Sci-Fi Channel's Marathon Monday, where from 6 to 10 p.m. they aired 4 of SG-1's previous episodes back to back. So even the earlier episodes that I was seeing were starting somewhere around Season 2 or 3. This season is full of memories, for better or for worse. The 2-part premiere begins with Elizabeth Weir running the SGC after Don S. Davis's departure as General Hammond. And she's negotiating a treaty because we are bluffing our way through that the Asgard have the resources to protect Earth if we are attacked. Jack has to weigh the decision of whether or not to accept a promotion and the leadership of Stargate Command.
I've spent my whole life sticking it to the man. If I do this, I'll be the man. I don't think I can be the man.
Ultimately, he decides to accept, and this was because Richard Dean Anderson wanted to step back from the show and spend more time with his family. This is also why a fair number of episodes this season take place on Earth. One of these episodes is Affinity, where Teal'c gets to finally live off base after 7 years of the show, and immediately becomes implicated in a murder investigation when he teaches his neighbor how to defend herself, and then her abusive boyfriend turns up dead. Following a run-in with the trust that threatens her life, he moves out of his apartment and, presumably, back to Stargate Command. Avatar is part-time loop, part virtual reality, in which a training exercise gone wrong uses the immersion chairs we first saw back in Gamekeeper from Season 2.
Threat level, Foxtrot, Alpha 6. All security teams to the gate room.
This soundbite not only lives rent-free in my head, it is running a protection racket with the J.G. Wentworth jingle to collect from the parts of my brain that remember important phone numbers and how to spell consciousness. The simulation involves the Cull Warriors and is learning from Teal'c every time he runs it. Ultimately, Daniel must join him in order to complete the exercise and escape. Lockdown reminds us that Anubis is a half-ascended Goa'uld who, when he isn't using his special shielded suit, is capable of possessing people with his incorporeal form. In Sacrifices, Teal'c's son Ryak is marrying one of the feminist Jaffa from the Hacktill that we met back in Season 7.
The bride will then kneel before her husband in respect.
I will do no such thing.
And they even have a third-act breakup over antiquated customs as part of their marriage vows. But, because this is Stargate, we do have to have some sort of resolution in a 45-minute episode, and they ultimately agree that no one has to bow to anyone as part of their union.
May you love and fight like warriors, just not with each other.
Prometheus Unbound doesn't really call back to anything other than we have a human-built spacecraft, but it does introduce Claudia Black as Vala Maldoran, which becomes very important in the next couple of seasons. It's Good to Be King is the last series appearance of one Harry Mayborn after the Tok'ra relocated him off-world. Serving in exile apparently isn't so bad when, against all odds, you keep rolling high on charisma and have a fiefdom and multiple wives. Full Alert is the final downfall of Kinsey, whose characterization made me hate politicians at the age of 13, and I hadn't yet gotten to experience the full depth and breadth of his other actions that made him the villain we all love to hate. You have someone trying to reveal the existence of aliens by trotting out an empty vessel Asgard clone without a consciousness downloaded into it, which explains one of Earth's important allies. Also, this corporate logo is extremely similar to how the one for Sci-Fi Channel looked before it became Siffy. The Replicators show up in a big way this season, both the mechanized bugs and the human form versions, which we first encountered in Seasons 3 and 6, respectively. And we get Replicator because of Fifth's unhealthy obsession with our leading lady, which, to be perfectly honest, is pretty par for the course. Speaking of Sam, the writers did my girl dirty this season, and I'll never quite forgive them for this being my first real impression of her. Why did we go so soap opera with her plotline? There is so much emphasis on her romantic relationships across this season, to the point where she shows up unannounced in Jack O'Neill's backyard and is dancing around what she really wants to say, that he is the reason she is feeling more and more conflicted the closer she gets to marrying another man. This man. I've never stopped calling this guy Stalker Pete, and I think it's really suspicious that this actor got written into a show his brothers work on as a love interest for the main female character that the whole galaxy has been thirsting over this entire time. Whether you wanted to see Sam and Jack end up together or not, the fact that he was introduced and immediately used his law enforcement connections to run a background check on the woman he started dating after being set up together by her brother is unhinged behavior.
Can you do a background check on someone for me? Top-down, global agency search, the works?
Sure thing. Who is it?
An Air Force major. Samantha Carter.
Jacob's reaction to this schmuck, I like to think, sums up the reaction of the fanbase as a whole when Pete Shanahan became a recurring character in the series. The inclusion of Jacob in this season in the fight to take down the Replicators calls back to the Tok'ra and their fight against the Goa'uld. In the plotline in the premiere about striking a treaty with the System Lords highlights the fractious nature of the Goa'uld power structure by this point in the story. We are dealing with Anubis in multiple ways because he's been a threat for the last couple of seasons. And how could we forget about Daniel Jackson and his cockroach ability? Threads originally aired as a 90-minute broadcast episode, the only episode of the show to do this, but it needed the runtime for the story it was telling. During the events of Reckoning, Daniel was aboard a ship with Replicator, who was probing his mind for answers until he figured out how to turn their connection against her and freeze all the replicators in the galaxy for long enough that the weapon on Dakara could wipe them out. But as a result, even if he hadn't been run through, he was scattered into space when the ship disintegrated, and Oma Dasala makes an appearance to give him another chance at Ascension. He has to make the decision whether or not to do it, which was the way that they kept the door open for him to return after his departure at the end of Season 5. And the rest of the team grapples with the very real need for habeas corpus with this man.
How many times have you thought he was gone, and then he shows up in one form or another? I'm sorry, but we're not having a memorial service for someone who is not dead.
Season 8 has probably my favorite clip episode in the entire series. These don't really exist in modern shows because now we can binge everything on streaming. But back when things were airing on TV and possibly making it to syndication, you might have people who just kind of joined in that you had to catch up on it. I love Citizen Joe for what it is and what it does, because it follows a barber from Indiana who picks up one of the ancient communication stones and starts seeing glimpses of Jack O'Neill's memories, which he tells as stories to his clients, then turns them into short stories, and finally has a mental collapse. This does ultimately get a happy ending as Jack clarifies and validates all of Joe's experiences to Joe's now estranged wife. The last two episodes that make up the two-part season finale of Season 8 are a fun little time travel romp, and they relate to some of the things that were happening in Atlantis Season 1, which was airing concurrently with SG-1 Season 8. If you watched the series from the beginning, I understand why some of Season 8 would be disappointing to a long-term fan, but for me as an excited kid getting into sci-fi, the tiebacks to previous seasons were incredibly helpful. Where did you start your Stargate journey? Did you watch from the beginning, binge it all after it was off the air, or jump in somewhere in the middle and fumble along like I did? Let me know in the comments below. Please do all those delicious things that feed the almighty algorithm, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!